Hello guys, welcome back. I'm doing actually much better this morning. Tyr reasoned with me. He said, "Do you really think you have just instantly become a neo-Nazi, enslaved children because you're working with me?" Because that rambling article went on to claim anyone that um served Tyr that wasn't them was a neo-Nazi, and Tyr wouldn't own a cell phone because it's child enslavement. I think you're thinking of Barbie dolls, dear, but you do you. And it was rambling rhetoric and hate and just went to some strange places. And the Terror I know is actually a pretty chill guy. He can be grim and unsmiling at times. So can Odin. So can Loki. So can any god. They can scare the shit out of you with how serious they can become. But he can actually be gentle and fun. Remember, he's the playmate of Fenrir. According to the stories we have, and I don't put a lot of stock in our stories, all the other gods were terrified of the giant Wolfle, and Fenrir was the only one that would get on the ground and play with him. I'm assuming other than Loki, because somehow Loki gets written out of stories about his own son, which insults him to no end. So he would get on the ground, he would play with Fenrir, and I've always gotten the idea from Fenrir that all the gods treated him well. I mean, he wouldn't have let them put chains on him if he distrusted them. He is a wolf. He's a wolf god, yes, but he is a wolf, and if they don't trust you, they're not going to do something. So, I think for one, the story is heavily allegorical, and I think for two, Tyr, as Tyr has said, can appear however Tyr wants. Tyr wants a beard, Tyr has one. If he doesn't have one. There are people who will fight about how many hands Tyr has. I just distinctly got 5. Really sarcastic. It doesn't matter. Gods will appear to people, one, how you can handle seeing them. It doesn't do any good for a god to appear in a way that would shock you or melt your brain. And two, in a way that makes sense to you and relates to your personal life story. Tyr's appeared a lot of different ways to me. He can appear as, like a modern military man, which makes sense. And in my personal experience, he's more of a Wolves and Warriors veteran. Helping other veterans work through the trauma of having been on the battlefield. People that glory in war have either never even remotely studied it or never been around violence, because he's not unstable. And he was working me last night through some trauma, because having to face that article again, having Tier 1 in, brought up a lot of trauma from my past. And he worked me through it. It wasn't like Patton slapping you in the face and telling you to man up. It was more like I said, the Wolves and Warrior thing of working you through all the horror you've been through at your own time. And I was watching Wolves and Warriors yesterday, and they said, they have to bring out the inner boy in these soldiers, because predominantly male. And they have to let that inner boy heal, is what they have to do. And this is very loving and kind. And it probably surprises people, because these are men that have seen combat, and these are, men that they go over, they see combat, and they come back, and the military's done with them. The military's not going to pay to help them put their life back together. Military doesn't give two shits. Well, the government doesn't give two shits. The military does the best they can. And so they have to help each other. They have to help their brothers in arms and help them heal, and because suicide's a definite thing. So they have to see each other through it, and they have to give each other their own time. And Tyr was definitely giving me my own time, but it was definitely like, I'm here. You're not getting away. And Fenrir was helping. Fenrir's like, yeah. Rah, 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 rah. And he speaks perfectly fine English, but he'll put on the wolf act triple time if he thinks it's going to help his case. And, Tyr had pointed out he was Fenrir's playmate. And whether these are ancient gods, how I get the sense, and maybe these stories were made up after, or whatever, they at least honor the stories. He will at least honor the story that he was Fimmer's playmate. But it's like I've seen Odin with two eyes, and Odin's looked at me and goes, "What's the matter? What's the matter? Something different? Something different?" Oh my god. I've seen Tyr with two hands, because he can appear with one hand, he can appear with two. If he wanted six, he'd have six. If he wanted to appear in whatever, he would appear in whatever. It's Tyr. He's a god. He can do whatever he wants. Which is why somebody recently asked me how the gods looked, and I said, I'm not going to get into that fight with you. I'm not going to get into a fight of, you don't see the gods how I see them, therefore you don't have a valid experience. I don't care really how a god looks to you. There's a group that claims to be, you know, as a whatever, and they won't serve Tyr because he doesn't exist, because this other version of Tyr exists, and this version of Tyr has two hands. So they won't serve Tyr, they'll serve Twee, or however the hell you pronounce it. I just got exasperated sigh back here. But they won't serve him. And you are totally free to not serve a god if they truly don't want your service. If they do, then you're shit out of luck. Because the more you resist, the harder they'll make it for you. And Tyr's been here all this time. It's just been, we can work together for a while, and then because that article was just so lovely and brought up all the trauma in my past, we don't. And you guys know I was horrifically abused as a child. And the shit that wrote the article said, well, people who are being abused, it's their fault because they could have left. No, you couldn't have. I will tell you right now, if you weren't abused, you don't get to make a fucking judgment call. Because I can tell you, having been abused, that if the abuser is fucking crazy enough to kill you, you don't leave. My mother and I had the discussion many a time that, you know, it would be better to stay, because if we left, he threatened to kill whoever we were with. And he would have. He was fucking crazy. We're not dead like so many families end up dead because we chose to take the abuse. So fuck you for anyone that thinks you can just leave an abusive person. If they're the kind of crazy fucker that'll chase you down and kill you, you don't leave. You endure the abuse. It's not fair, it's not right, and for a very long time I was pissed at the gods for not getting me out of the situation, but at least I endured it. And, you know, it goes back to Tyr's sacrifice of, my mother and I adored the abuse because we were truly afraid that if we left, if we went to her mother, or we went to someone else, or we went to a shelter, because we would have had absolutely nothing. My father made fucking sure my mother had no money and no power of her own. We would have been hunted down and killed, and he would have killed all the women in the shelter. And we were terrified for those women because we figured, we know he's crazy, we can handle it. But we were frightened because my mom said, what if there are little children and babies there? And she said she was sorry, but she couldn't leave. And she said, you know, I could leave if I wanted, and I wasn't going to leave my mom alone in that shit show, so no. And so I had a healing crisis last night, obviously, because when you have gone through a lot of abuse, you don't like being reminded of it, especially by trait people who are being bitchy about it because they have no fucking idea what it actually entails. And it's just a systematic and repeated breaking down of your self-worth until you're surviving, you're enduring every day. And Tyr's one of those gods that wants to help heal that. He's one of those gods that wants to reach in and try to salvage whatever he can and try to make you a better, more sane person. And I appreciate that. He's not, so for me, he's not this guy that feels sorry for himself. He's not this guy that is overly stern, because he'll adapt. If what you need is a more friendly guy that played with Fenrir and tumbled on the ground with him and played with the big wolf wolves, then that's what he'll become. And he's actually been very protective about me healing. And he pointed out, if all Tears people were antisocial, as the article claimed, and they were all aggressive and they were all going around ruining stuff for people, that's not following Tears' principles. He's a god of justice. He's a god of military leadership. And he's a god that you have to have sense in order. You can't just have people running around stirring stuff up and agitating either the people or the leadership or the army. You can't have people like that. Well, you know what they do with them in the military. So, yeah, you can't have loose cannon rolling around on deck and all the people getting hurt. You can't have that happening. So, I don't know why the person claimed to be serving Tyr. It's just like people claim to serve Loki so they can do absolute chaos and ruin some shit. And then 2 years later, they're bored of Loki. They never serve Loki, so they're off serving someone else and causing chaos in that community. You're going to have bad people in every religion, and I can't put it any more bluntly. You're going to have bad people that they're taking out whatever's wrong in their life on you and everyone else around them, and they don't care. They're justified. If someone told me that you don't need to fix something they broke, I'm like, you don't serve any Norse god I can think of, because they would all make you fix what you broke, and you would have to fix yourself too. So it was just, I'm really tired because it was really intense to remember a lot of stuff I remembered. But it was really healing too, and Tyr was infinitely gentle, and he just walked me through it. And he can actually, I don't know where he picked up on smiling, because we don't have a lot of the stuff unless you can hand me the actual ancient poem that has it in it. A lot of the stuff we have, the people claim to have on Tyr, we don't have. It has to be straight up UPG, because it's like we don't have it. And I know in my experience that, he'd be the kind of guy that he could kick back and have a beer with you. He could certainly smile and he could certainly laugh, which just made this individual hate me all the more, because that obviously can't be Tyr, because Tyr never smiles and Tyr never laughs. If it calls for it, he will. If you watch, like I said, if you watch Wolves and Warriors, these guys aren't guys that smile and laugh very much, but when it comes to the wolves, they open up and they're laughing and they're playing with the wolf, because the wolf needs that. The wolf needs that nourishment. A wolf can't be alone. They need a pack. They need a pack to love them, and they need a pack for their psychology. That's just how they're built. They'll go crazy. If you try to have a lone wolf, they'll go crazy. We only have lone wolves if they lose their pack, if they get separated from the pack, or if it's, to be blunt, it's mating season, and every wolf wants a mate. Every wolf in the pack wants a mate. The gods didn't grant them the blessing of only the two top wolves want a mate. Every wolf wants a mate. And if they want to mate bad enough and the drive's bad enough, they'll go running off and they'll find a mate. And that's how they separate from the pack. So it's more spring fever than it's anything else. It's not some tough badass wolf gonna fuck some shit up. It's, oh my god, there's a wolf and she's cute. Boing, there he goes. And he's off. Or she's off. It's nature. It's Mother Nature saying, hey, let's go start your own pack. Let's disperse all the wolves. That's totally healthy, natural. And I'd wondered why a Cinderella thing came up yesterday. A Cinderella thing came up, and I agree with it. And she said, stop blaming the victim. And it tells you right in the first part of Cinderella, Disney's Cinderella, in case we're not clear, that she was abused. She was an abuse victim. And her coping mechanisms were the coping mechanisms you learn. You do not appreciate the abuse. It's in no way normal. You know it's wrong. But at the same time, you learn how to cope, and you learn how to protect other people in that abusive situation. And you'll take the abuse because there's just nothing at that time you can do. You're disempowered, and she's terrified of her stepmother and her stepsisters attack her. It's not a cheerful film by any stretch of the imagination. She goes through all this horrific abuse. And she ends up being the one that saves herself. She doesn't have a prince save her. She ends up saving herself because she's quick-witted. And reviewer said, it's really insulting to say that she just sat there passively and she's this weak victim. When you're going through abuse, you get a kind of mindset, which I've been told by, I've been blessed to know a lot of veterans. I've been told it's kind of like a military mindset. Um, there's nothing you can do about the situation. You're constantly under fire. You're constantly under attack because you never know what's a safe time and what's a bad time. But you learn to deal with it. You learn not to stick your head up out of the foxhole, and you learn to deal with it. It might not be right, but those are the cards you've been dealt, and you're in the middle of a war zone until you can get to safety. And for my mother and I, we both had a strong ethical streak, and it was a thing of you don't get to safety if it's going to endanger other people. Now, if other people do, I wouldn't judge them. Abuse is terrible to go through. I wouldn't judge anyone for getting out, but for us, we were so afraid. We were like, if we go for help, he will literally kill these people. He had a gun, he had a fuck ton of guns, and he was fucking crazy. And back in the 80s, and I know it even goes on today, that if the family presented this outward thing of getting along and all loving each other, and that's what we would present, people thought nothing was wrong. And people that have never been abused don't understand it's a pretty common abuse tactic to put you through horrific abuse and then buy you something. Because that makes the abuse okay, and that shows they actually love you. And I don't care how many damn videos I've watched and how many articles I've read about why abusive men do what they do or abusive women do what they do. It doesn't make it okay. You have to fucking go for help. It's something you need to get under fucking control before you kill somebody. So, and it affected a lot of what I do with my life. I never had a family because I'm like, I'm not going through that shit show again. I was afraid I'd either marry the same kind of person or, because they say you always marry your father, right? Or I would be abusive to my own children. I was like, no, that's not fucking happening. So it's been not fun, but Tyr's been with me through it all, and Loki's certainly been here and in the middle, and Finmir's been here, and Odin's been here. And Tyr reasoned with me. He said, whatever you need, we'll get to you. He said, I don't give a shit what Loki wants. He says, whatever you need, he'll get to me. If I need tap dancing Jesus to feel better, they will find me that. They will get the resources to me to heal. Whatever I need to be stable and be in a better place and to heal and get over some of this trauma, it's not going to be overnight. I will get to really good parts of my life where I think I'm totally over it, and then it's a cycle. You should read Women Who Run with Wolves, because you will get over this shit. You'll be so strong, and then something will happen and you're back down on your knees. And he's like, no, you're not going to hurt yourself. You're not going to commit suicide. You're not going to become embittered with the world. You're not going to go around destroying stuff. You're going to deal with this. I know this isn't fun, but you're going to deal with it. He's actually, pretty gentle when he's dealing with you in that capacity. And he can laugh and he can smile. And like I said, that totally triggered the person because Tyr never smiles. I've met people that say Loki is nice as sugar cream pie, and I'm like, really? I got the sarcastic bastard then. Lucky me. So, it's, I heard a giggle back here. So it's been a thing, and I don't talk about my past abuse to get you guys to feel sorry for me or garner votes or start trouble. It's just, it's something that shaped a lot of who I am. And it shaped a lot of my worldview, and it's why I'm such a major cynic, and I think it's why Odin gets along with me, because I don't trust the world. It took decades for me to realize that wasn't normal life. When I would see movies as a little girl and I didn't know any better, I'd ask my dad why the dad wasn't hitting the children. He'd say, well, he's a weak man and he wants weak children. I had a lot of psychotic bastards in my family. I had an uncle that was so psychotic that when he died, a family actually threw a celebration. He was the one that would tell you that she can't complain if you can't find her body. So yeah, I lived through a fucking nightmare, and that was just my dad's side of the family. My mother's side of the family was fucking nuts crazy too. Except for the uncles. Thank the gods they were like states away and they missed all the insanity, but yeah. if you grow up in that kind of fucking nightmare, I think it's why horror movies appeal to me, because I'm like, these monsters are a lot better than the ones I grew up with. At least these are fictional and can relate. So, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. We have Tears Wolves ordered, and we have like a little thing that he liked. He was attracted to this necklace, and he's actually pushing for Fenrir to get time, and Fenrir pushes for Tyr to get time. They back each other up. Whether ancient days they historically had anything to actually do with each other, I don't know, but they do now, and that's good enough for me. So if you like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.